Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're going to validate a lifelong physical experience you've probably had, absorbing the emotions of others right into your bones. We're going to dive into how Carl Jung's psychology can actually help you transform what you've always perceived as a weakness into a profound, almost superhuman capability.
Okay, so let's jump right into this by picturing a scenario. Imagine you're walking into a house. Before a single word is even spoken, before anyone even greets you at the door, you can feel, right in your bones, whether it is a happy or an unhappy home. You pick up on the physical tells of other people's emotional states with a precision that is almost clinical. You might even sense fatigue or illness in others way before they consciously recognize it in themselves.
Look, for most of your life, you've probably been told that you're just overreacting. You've been dismissed as oversensitive or high maintenance. But Carl Jung, one of the absolute titans of psychology, would look at you and say society got your diagnosis completely wrong. He'd identify you as a somatic perceiver. This means you aren't broken and you definitely aren't imagining things. You simply possess a rare form of differentiated perception where you register psychological information directly through your physical body.
I want you to be brutally honest with yourself for a second. How many times have you walked into a totally normal, everyday space, maybe a family dinner or a regular corporate office, and suddenly felt this crushing, completely unexplainable physical exhaustion? Or maybe you get a sudden headache or a deep depletion that even a solid night of sleep just cannot fix. If your body is constantly acting as a sponge for the world's hidden pain, you really need to understand the invisible psychological war you're caught in.
Which brings us to part 1, the hidden war, environmental overload. What's wild about this extraordinary perceptual intelligence is that it literally feels like a curse that is actively destroying your nervous system. The biggest challenge for a somatic perceiver is that the world is relentlessly loud on a physical level. Certain spaces, certain crowds, and even very specific light or sound combinations act as massive triggers. They create an environmental overload that can be genuinely disabling. It's incredibly hard to explain to people who don't experience it themselves, but for you, the sensory input is heavy, it's exhausting, and it is entirely overwhelming.
To really get why this happens to you, we have to look at how human groups naturally function. Jung noticed that healthy groups actually rely on something he called managed blindness. It's basically a collective, unspoken agreement within a group to just ignore uncomfortable truths. You maintain a surface illusion just so cooperation can continue. It's that polite smile at a tense dinner table while everyone actively ignores the giant elephant in the room.
And this right here is the core problem you face. Normal group dynamics, well, they let everyone else intellectually notice or even totally ignore all that suppressed tension. But you, as a somatic perceiver, your nervous system simply refuses to lie to you. You literally can't participate in that managed blindness. Instead, you're left physically metabolizing the room's repressed trauma, the unspoken resentment, and all that unacknowledged shadow material right in your own physical body. All that constant involuntary absorption leads to a truly terrifying psychological state Jung called participation mystique. It's a state where the boundaries of your own individual psyche just dissolve into the collective around you. You suffer severe identity erosion. You're no longer just reading the room, you're becoming the room. And man, that leaves you entirely depleted. Think about the absolute irony of the modern wellness industry for a second. They love selling you a $40 lavender bath bomb or a shiny rose quartz crystal to, cure your stress. But let's be brutal here. If you're a somatic perceiver suffering from identity erosion, a spa day is definitely not going to save you. You don't need a bath bomb. You need a psychological hazmat suit to stop your nervous system from absorbing the neuroses of your entire zip code. So, let's move right into our next section, the architecture of protection, conscious participation. Let's look at how Jung figured out you can actually transform this absorption into an amazing tool. Because here's the thing, you can't just turn off a physical gift by labeling it a disorder. You can only learn to wield it with greater consciousness. And to do that, you have to master 2 completely non-negotiable steps. Number 1, recognition and separation. And number 2, building psychological containers. Let's break these down. Since you physically blend into your environment, step 1 is absolutely critical. You have got to establish a daily practice of consistent solitude. When you spend time each day in genuine quiet, the physical material you've absorbed from your environment finally begins to settle. This separation is what allows your own authentic psychological voice to become audible again, totally distinct from the noisy frequency of everybody else. And as part of that separation, you've got to train your brain to act as a constant, vigilant filter. Whenever you feel a shift, I want you to literally stop and ask yourself, wait, where did this physical feeling come from? Is this heavy chest or this sudden exhaustion actually mine? Trace the feeling back. Did it start the second that specific person sat next to you? Because if it isn't yours, you don't have to keep carrying it. Which makes step 2 the real game changer. You need to establish what Jung called psychological containers. This means being fully present to other people's psychological contents without losing yourself in them. It's about consciously shifting your identity from an unconscious absorber to a conscious witness. Think about the difference between an unconscious absorber and a conscious witness. You want to think like a trained first responder. A paramedic can walk right into a room, be completely aware of the crisis and the unacknowledged grief, yet remain totally professionally functional. They don't absorb the trauma, they witness it. Why? Because their internal structure, their psychological container, is strong enough to hold the weight of the moment while maintaining a grounded center. And this brings us to the ultimate test of your own somatic boundaries. Whose specific physical tension or suppressed anger have you been unconsciously carrying in your body this week? Is it a partner, a boss, a parent? I want you to look inward right now and name the exact source of that physical contamination, because naming it is the very first step to pulling it out of your body and handing it right back to where it belongs. And that leads us directly into our final section, the call to mastery, becoming equal to it. Listen, if you've spent your whole life feeling like your body is just too intense, too sensitive, or just fundamentally untranslatable, you really need to hear this clearly. You are not broken. Jung would actually call you a consciousness pioneer. You're someone who senses the unacknowledged shadow material of a culture or a family right in your bones, long before it ever becomes visible to the collective. You're literally capable of feeling the hidden truths of the world before anyone else can even see them. That is a profound gift. Your true mission basically boils down to this one idea. The work is to become equal to what you carry. The work in front of you is not to numb your body to match the unconscious people around you. Not at all. It's to embrace the discipline of conscious solitude and absolutely stop apologizing for the clarity of your nervous system. Your perception is already sharp. It's just your internal structure that needs to catch up. So, I'm going to leave you with this. Now that you actually know the invisible war you've been fighting all along, what are you going to choose? Are you going to remain an unconscious sponge, continuing to let your identity erode day by day, or will you build your psychological containers, establish your solitude, and finally become equal to the fierce power of feeling the world exactly as it is? The choice is entirely yours. Thanks for joining me for this Explainers, and keep building those containers.